Happy Saturday. Happy Thanksgiving long weekend Saturday if you are Canadian. I have a wicked headache. I've had a wicked headache for a couple of days, but I'm going on vacation soon, so I want to finish the Odyssey before that happens. So today and tomorrow are going to be slightly longer streams than usual, but maybe not because the weekend streams are normally longer in general. Let's get into it. I've got Ace here. Book 19 is what we're starting with today. Odysseus lingered where he was in the hall, nursing his schemes to kill the suitors with Athene's help. Suddenly, he spoke out to his son. My Telemachus, let us now stow away all the serviceable weapons, and for reasoned excuse, when the suitors ask you why, say, to save them from the fire reek, for they have become so tarnished by smoke as not to look like the same weapons Odysseus left here when he sailed for Troy. Also, the graver thought came to me from above, that some day in wine you might yield to anger and disgrace the hospitality of this courtship by wounds given and taken. Iron that has attraction for men. In furtherance of his father's words, Telemachus called to Euryclea, the nurse. Mother, pray keep me the women in their quarters while I transfer my father's costly war gear to the store. The things are getting so sooted, with no one to care for them since he went. I was a baby then, but now I would put them where the fumes of the fire will not reach. Euryclea answered, It would be as well, my child, if you made a habit of caring for the house and the preservation of its goods. But who is going to light you at work, if you will not have the maids whose office that is? He replied, The stranger here. Though a man come to me from the ends of the earth, I will not have him idle while he eats at my expense. The saying cut off her speech. The well-fitting doors clashed behind her. I'm going to grab my water, which is not, unfortunately, there we go. Not in an ideal location. The well-fitting doors clashed behind her. Up sprang Odysseus and his noble son to start carrying off helmets, bossed shields, and sharp spears, while Pallas Athene, with a golden lamp, made their way beautifully bright. Telemachus gasped out, Father, my eyes behold a miracle. The sides of the hall, its roof beams and pine wood framing, and the tall columns glow with lambent flame. Some god must be here in the midst, one of the heavenly host. Hush, said Odysseus. Repress your thoughts and ask no question. This is the mode of the divinities of Olympus. To bed with you, and leave me here to probe the feelings of the serving women and your mother. Grief will make her question me by and large. Telemachus duly crossed the hall, under its flaring torchlight, to seek the room where he always lay when sleep's bounty visited him. Through this night, too, he rested on his couch for dawn to come, while Odysseus waited alone in the hall, still meditating the suitor's destruction by aid of Athene. Like Artemis or golden Aphrodite, Penelope appeared from her room. In its wonted place before the fire they had set her chair, an early piece turned in ivory and silver by Icmalius the artist, who had added an extension forward from the seat to serve as a footrest, and this was upholstered with a great fleece. In such state Penelope sat, while from their part of the house her bare-armed maids pressed in to clear the tables of the plentiful broken bread and the cups which those haughty ones had used. They raked out the embers from the braziers and piled them high again with fresh logs to afford light and heat. But Melantho began again upon Odysseus. Hanging about still, plaggy stranger, to prowl through the darkened house peeping at the maids? Put paper to your supper, wretch, and get outside the gate. Quickly, too, or you will be chased out at the point of a firebrand. Odysseus, looking at her hardly, said, Damsel, why persecute me with such malignity? I know I am dirty. I know I am ragged. I do beg round the countryside, as I needs must. It is the way of paupers and homeless men. Once, like my fellows, I had a house and was prosperous, with crowds of freemen and the other trappings of an easy life. In those days I often helped such like waifs, no matter what their need or nature. Only Zeus brought me down. God's will be done. One day, woman, you too may lose this pride of place, wherefrom you now dominate the maids, for your lady might fall out with you, or Odysseus return. There is still hope of that, while supposing he is really dead or gone, his son, Telemachus, like him by the grace of Apollo, is old enough now to notice it whether a servant of the house misconducts herself. Penelope overheard his speech and called up the maid for reproof. Bold brazen piece, she rated her. The great secret in your life is not hidden from me. Your head shall pay for it. Also, you know perfectly, having heard me say it, that the stranger waits in the hall, because I mean to question him upon my husband, so grievously lost." She turned to Eurynome. "Bring a bench and spread it with a sheepskin for the stranger to sit and hear me and reply. I want all his tale." Quickly the place was set, and then Penelope opened with, "Stranger, my first inquiry must be, whence are you, and who? What town and parents?" And Odysseus said, "Lady, no mortal man could resent your least saying. High and wide as heaven your fame extends, pure as the glory of some God-fearing king of a populous, powerful race, by virtue of whose equity and good governance the masses prosper, and the dark earth abounds with wheat or barley, and the trees bow down with fruit, and the ewes lamb infallibly, and the sea yields fish." Excuse me. Something in my throat. Bet that was super, super attractive. Okay. "Inquire of me here in your house upon every imaginable thing, save only those of my race and country. Their memories would fill my heart too full of woe. I am a very melancholy man, but it is unbecoming to sit in another's house, sobbing and sighing, for such promiscuous grief makes things worse. Further, one of the maids, or even yourself, lady, losing patience with me, might cry out that the tears in which I wallow derive from an overlord of wine." Penelope said, "Stranger, my beauty went forfeit to the gods the day my husband sailed with the Argives for Troy. Should he return to cherish me, my fortune and favor would improve. As it is, heaven afflicts me too sorely. All the island chiefs court me uninvited and ravage the estate, while I neglect my guest, the suppliants that come, and even heralds on mission, to eat my heart out for Odysseus. Men urge my remarriage, but over that I lead them a fair dance. I was inspired to build me a monster loom upstairs, on which I set up a great fine threaded linen weave, telling them by and by, 'My lords and suitors, be patient with me. However much you wish me wedded, now great Odysseus is lost, till I complete this shroud against the inevitable day that death shall smite Laertes, the aged hero, low. I would not have my threads idly wind-scattered, lest some Achaean woman find me blameworthy. With good reason, should this once wealthy man lie unhouselled.' They honoured my request. All day I would weave, and after dark unravel my work by torchlight. So for 3 undetected years I fooled them, but by connivance of my traitorous and despicable maids, they caught me in the act as the 4th year drew towards its close. Their wrath forced me to finish the winding sheet incontinently, and now I can find no other And now I find no other excuse or means of shirking this marriage. My parents insist on it. My son resents the inroads upon his income caused by the suitors' forced entertainment, and is very conscious of their expensiveness, he being now a grown man, house-proud, and honorably endowed by Zeus with wits. Yet do tell me of your family, for you cannot be the fabulous child of some crag or oak tree." Odysseus said to her in answer, "O honoured wife of Odysseus, you must indeed press me about my family. Very well, you shall have it, though the telling entails great pain, as is ever the way with men who have spent years in sorry vagabondage from city to city. Hear your answer. Amidst the wine-dark sea lies Crete, a fair, rich island populous beyond compute, with 90 cities of mixed speech, where several languages coexist. Besides the Cretans proper, there are Achaeans, Sidonians, Dorians of tossing crests, and noble Pelasgians. The capital is Knossos, ruled by Minos, who from his 9th year talked familiarly with great Zeus. He was my grandfather, King Idomeneus, and myself being the children of Deucalion, his son. I had the honor of being called Athenian, but was the cadet, Idomeneus being elder and preferred. He accompanied the sons of Atreus to Ilion in the war fleet, so giving me the chance of seeing Odysseus, and playing host to him, when an adverse wind forced him to leeward of Malea and ashore in Crete, while Troy bound. He only just escaped the storm, but made the difficult port of Amnesis by the cave of Eileithyia, and there's Eileithyia? It is now. And there stopped. Presently, he visited our city to ask after Idomeneus, claiming close and esteemed friendship. Only Idomeneus had sailed for Ilium 10 or 11 dawns before, so I had the bringing of him to our palace, where I could entertain him with all the courtesy and nobility, because of our abundant wealth. I found him, and the troop that followed him, in barley meal and dark wine from the public magazines, and collected all the cattle they needed for sacrifice. 12 days these noble Achaeans passed with us, while a northerly gale, excited by some wrathful god, raged so madly that they could not even stand upon the shore. On the 13th, the wind fell and they put out. As he spun them, his lies took on the hue of truth, and as she listened, her tears rained down till her being utterly dissolved, as the snow lay upon the lofty peaks by the west wind melts before the breath of a south-easter and streams down to fill the water brooks. So did her fair cheeks stream with grief for the husband who was sitting beside her in the flesh. Even Odysseus pitied his unhappy wife, but crafty purpose kept his eyes hard, with never a tremor to break their steady stare from eyelids that might have been of horn or iron. She wept her fill and ceased to say, "Now, before everything, stranger, I must test you to make sure it was really my husband on his glory and his glorious company you entertained, as you allege. So tell me of his dress. Describe him and the fellows in his train." Odysseus answered, "Lady, it is hard after so long. 20 years have passed since he came and went. But I will recite the impression he left on my mind. Odysseus himself wore a heavy purple cloak, lined self it was. His brooch of wrought gold was double-bowed. Its flat bore the design of a hound holding down a dappled fawn with his forepaws and watching it struggle. All admired how the dog was made, in the metal, to be eyeing his prey while gripping it by the throat, and how the fawn's feet writhed in convulsive effort to escape. Also, I noticed the sheen of the tunic that fitted his trunk as closely as clings the sheath to a dried onion, smooth like that and shining like the sun. The many women could not take their eye from it. Let me recount another thing to you, as there can be no certainty that Odysseus wore these clothes at home and did not have them given him for the voyage by some friend or host, he being greatly beloved, a man beyond compare amongst Achaeans. Myself, when reconducting him respectably to his ship, presented to him a bronze sword, another good doubled purple cloak, and a fringed tunic. But he had a herald with him, a man rather older than himself, whom I can describe as well, for he was stooping and dark-faced with clustered curls. His name? Eurybates. Odysseus, finding him sympathetic, prized him beyond all his other men-at-arms. His words renewed her longing to weep, for she recognized the authentic proofs he showed. She cried herself out and said, "Till now, stranger, you have been an object of compassion. Henceforward you shall be privileged and loved here in my house. The garments you describe I furnished from my store and packed for him, adding the burnished pin to be his ornament. Alas, that I shall never have him back with me, home in his own dear land. An ill season took Odysseus in his hollow ship to destroy that cursed place whose name shall not pass my lips." That's funny. That's funny. 1 second. She says to destroy Troy, but that cursed name is not going to pass her lips. So it's written like DES capital TORY, if I can. Destroy. It's funny. Odysseus urged her, "Lady of Odysseus, melt not your heart, nor mar your face with further grief for your lord. Though I cannot blame you, seeing how many women lament the dear dead fathers of their children, husbands not to be mentioned in the same breath with Odysseus, who all agree was godlike. Yet dry your tears, to mark what I now say frankly and with assurance. Very recently I had news of Odysseus returning. He is alive and nearby, no further than the rich Thesprotian land, and well, for he has collected and brings with him great store of choice treasure. Only he lost all his retinue and ship in the sea this side of Thrinacia, when Zeus and Helios were wroth with him for his men's killing the cattle of the sun. The crew perished to a man in the waves, but the currents brought him ashore, riding the ship's keel, to the Phaeacians, who are near gods by race. These almost worshipped him and gave him great gifts, offering to bring him safely here, in which case he would have been back already, but he preferred to fetch a long compass round and further enrich himself. Odysseus is wiser at profit turning than any of us. No one matches him there. Phaedon, king of the Thesprotians, my informant, swore to me in the act of libation at his house that both ship and crew to bring Odysseus home stood ready. He sent me first only because a merchantman was clearing for Delucium. He showed me Odysseus's store wealth and what was there of his in the royal treasury would suffice his heirs for 10 generations. The king said he had gone to Dodona to hear Zeus counsel him, out of the tall leafy oak, upon the manner of his return to Ithaca, whether it should be open or secret after so long. I assure you, and I swear to it, that he is safe, well, near, and about to regain his friends and land. Bear me witness, Zeus, the supreme and noblest god, as also the hearth of great Odysseus, to which I have attained. As I have said, all things shall come to pass. During the cycle of the sun, between the waning of the present moon and the next, will Odysseus arrive. Penelope replied, O stranger, should that come true, my bounty will rain on you, till all comers praise your state. But my heart warns me that the contrary will be the way of it. Odysseus will never return, nor you secure your passage hence. For today we have not in our house masterful ones like Odysseus. Was there ever an Odysseus? To greet guests of merit and speed them onward. Let be now. Women, prepare the bath and make down the stranger's bed with quilted rugs and glossy blankets, that he may arrive snugly before dawn's golden throne. And be prompt in the morning to wash and anoint him, that he may sit at table within the hall beside Telemachus. Any one of these bullies who offends him shall learn to his vexation that he has done himself no good in his suit here. But tell me, stranger, how you would judge me to transcend all women in character and resource, while I leave you sitting here, weather-beaten and in tatters at your meal? Man's day is very short before the end, and the cruel man whose ways are cruel lives accursed and is a byword after death, while the righteous man who works righteousness in his own renown has his renown brooded across the wide earth by guests until many acclaim such nobility. Odysseus protested, O great and grave spouse of Odysseus, I forswore rugs and smooth blankets. That day the snow-clad hills of Crete faded in my long-oared galley's wake. Let me lie as I have lain through many wakeful nights. Till many dark hours have I not endured on rough couches till the well-throned dawn. Or how many dark hours have I not endured on rough couches till the well-throned dawn. Baths for my feet appeal to me no more, nor shall any waiting maid of yours lay hand on me, save you have some aged and trusty women upon whose head have passed sorrows like mine. Of her tending I should not be jealous. Penelope said, Dear stranger, among all the great travelers received in this house, never has one in speech given proof of such grateful discretion or juster insight than yourself. I have a shrewdly conducted old dame, the nurse whose arms received my unhappy lord from his mother the day of his birth, and who tended and nourished him devotedly. She is frail now, but can wash your feet. Rise, prudent Euryclea, to serve this man of your master's generation, who dare say that the feet and hands of Odysseus are not, today, old like his. Hardship does so soon age its men. At the queen's words, the old servant covered her face with her hands and burst into scalding tears, while she bewailed Odysseus. My child, and I cannot help. Despite that piety of yours, Zeus has hated you worse than all mankind. Never were such fat thighs, such choice hecatombs consumed to the thunder lover, as when you prayed him for calm declining years in which to educate your splendid son. Yet you alone are denied a homecoming. Is Odysseus, when seeking hospitality in some foreign palace, mocked by its women as all these curs, O stranger, mock at you? For shame of their ribald vileness, you will not let them tend your feet, but in me, the wisdom of Penelope has found you a glad ministrant. For her sake do I wash your feet, but for your own too, my heart being touched and thrilled. Why thrilled? Because we have had many way-worn strangers here, but never have seen such likeness as yours, I say, to Odysseus, in shape and feet and voice. With presence of mind, Odysseus exclaimed, Old woman, all who have set eye on both of us remark it. They saw what you say, that we are exceedingly alike. While he spoke, the hoary woman had taken the burnished foot bath and poured in much cold water before stirring in the hot. Odysseus had been sitting towards the hearth, but now sharply turned himself to face the shadow, as his heart suddenly chilled with fear that in handling him she might notice his scar and the truth come to light. Yet so it was when she bent near in her washing. She knew it for the old wound of the boar's white tusk that he took years ago in Parnassus, while visiting his mother's brother and noble Autocleus, their father, who swore falser and stole better than all the world beside. These arts were conferred upon him by Hermes the god, who lent him cheerful countenance for the gratification of his kids' and goats' thighs burned in sacrifice. Autolycus once visited Ithaca to find his daughter just delivered of a son. Euryclea brought in the baby and set it in his lap at the end of supper, saying, Autolycus, invent a name for this your dear daughter's son, a child much prayed for. And Autolycus said, Son-in-law and daughter, name him as I shall say. For as much as I come here full of plaints against many dwellers upon earth, women as well as men, so call him Odysseus for the odiousness. And when he is a man, make him visit the palace of his mother's family at Parnassus, which is mine, and I will give him enough to send him joyfully home. And so it came out. Young Odysseus went for his gifts, and Autolycus with his sons welcomed him in open-handed courtesy, while his grandmother, Amphithea, embraced him to kiss his face and two lovely eyes. Autolycus told his famous sons to order food. Hastily, they produced a 5-year-old bull which they flayed and flensed, before joining its limbs to piece them cunningly small for the spits. After roasting them, they served the portions round, and day long till sunset all feasted, equally content. After sunset, when the darkness came, they stretched out and took the boon of sleep. At dawn they were for hunting, the sons of Autolycus with their hounds. Odysseus went too. Their way climbed steep Parnassus through the zone of trees till they attended its wind-swept upper folds, just as the sun, newly risen from the calm and brimming river of ocean, touched the ploughlands. Their beaters were entering a little glen when the hounds broke away forward, hot on a scent. After them ran the sons of Autolycus, with Odysseus pressing hard upon the pack, his poised spear trembling in his eager hand. A great boar was crouching there in a thicket so dense and overgrown as to be the proof against all dank breathing winds, and proof, too, against the flashing sun heat and the soaking rain, while its ground was deep in fallen leaves. About this rolled the thunder of their chase. When the tramp of men and dogs came close, the boar sprang from his lair to meet them. With bristling spine and fire-red eyes, he faced their charge. Odysseus, in the van, eagerly rushed in to stick him, brandishing the spear in a stout hand. But the boar struck first with a sideways lift of the head that drove in his tusk above the man's knee and gashed the flesh deeply, though not to the bone. Odysseus's return thrust took the beast on the right shoulder, the spear point flashing right through and out. Down in the dust with a grunt dropped the boar, and its life fled. Then the sons of Autolycus turned to and skillfully bound up the wound of gallant godlike Odysseus. They staunched the dark blood with a chanted rune and made back at once to their dear father's house. And then Autolycus and the sons completed his cure, made him great gifts, delighting a delightful guest, and punctually returned him to his own land of Ithaca. Laertes and his lady mother, in welcoming him home, inquired of everything, and especially of how he suffered that wound, and he recounted the whole story of the boar's gleaming tusk that ripped his leg while he hunted Parnassus with the sons of Autolycus. So there. I had a hair elastic or something to put my hair up because this is just goofy looking. But it is what it is. You know when your hair looks the best after you've showered, but then you have to brush it, and then it just goes like insane and puffy and all that stuff? Now, as the old woman took up his leg and stroked her hands gently along it, she knew the scar by its feel. She let go the foot, which with his shin splashed down into the tub and upset it instantly with a noisy clatter. The water poured over the ground. In Euryclea's heart, such joy and sorrow fought for mastery that her eyes filled with tears and her voice was stifled in her throat. So she caught Odysseus by the beard. Goodness. So she caught Odysseus by the beard to whisper, "You are my own child, Odysseus himself, and I never knew, not till I had fondled the body of my king." Her eyes traveled across to Penelope, meaning to signal that her beloved husband was at home. But Penelope failed to meet this glance or read its meaning, because Athene momentarily drew her thought away. Odysseus's right hand shot out, feeling for Euryclea's throat, and tightened about it, while with his left he crushed her to him and muttered, "Would you kill me, nurse, who have so often suckled me at your breast, when I at last return after 20 years of manifold misfortune? Now you have guessed this, and the god has flashed its truth into your mind. Keep it close, not to let another soul in the house suspect." He doesn't need to strangle her about it, I don't think. Otherwise, believe me, and I mean it. If heaven lets me beat this suitor's lords, I shall not spare you, my old nurse though you be, when I slaughter the other serving women in the hall. See, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. She was excited. She's like, "Oh my god, great, he's back." And then he strangled her about it. Wise Euryclea protested, "My child, what a dreadful thing to say. You should know my close and stubborn spirit, and how I carry myself with the starkness of iron or rock. Allow me, in turn, to suggest a point for your considering. If the god delivers you the bold suitors, then let me rehearse to you which women of the house disgrace you and which are innocent." He replied, "Nurse, why trouble? There is no need. On my own I can note them and class each one. Keep your news to yourself and commend the issue to the gods." Thereupon the bedlam hobbled off through the house for water to replace what had been spilled, and Odysseus, after being washed and anointed with smooth olive oil, dragged his bench nearer the fire to warm himself, carefully hiding the scarred leg beneath his rags. Then said Penelope, "Stranger, only a trifle have I to put to you now, for soon it will be the hour of happy sleep which comes so graciously to man, however sad." No reply from you. What do you mean? What does that mean, no reply from you? Hi. Then Penelope said, "Stranger, only a trifle have I to put to you now, for soon it will be the hour of happy sleep which comes so graciously to man, however sad. But not to me. Heaven has overburdened me with griefs beyond measure. During the daytime I glut myself with sorrow and lament, having my own duties to see to and my housemaidens' work. But night falls and the world sleeps. Then I lie in my bed, and the swarming cares so assail my inmost heart that I go distraught with misery. You know how the daughter of Pandarius, the sylvan nightingale, lights when the spring is young amidst the closest sprays and sings marvelously, the thrills pouring from her colorful throat in saddest memory of the son she bore King Zethus, darling Atylus, whom she unknowingly put to the sword and slew. My troubled mind quavers like her song. Must I stay by my son and firmly guard all my cattles, my maids, the towering great palace itself, out of reverence for my lord's bed and what people say? Or shall I go off with the best of these Achaeans who court me here and proffer priceless gifts? While my son was an unthinking child, his tender years forbade my leaving home to take a new husband. But he, tall now and come to man's estate, prays me to leave for my father's house, so greatly does he grudge the sight of the Achaeans swallowing up his substance. Wherefore listen and read me the stream of mine. I have 20 geese on the place, wild geese from the river, who have learned to eat my corn, and I love watching them. But a great hook-billed eagle swooped from the mountain, seized them by the neck, and killed them all. Their bodies littered the house in tumbled heaps, while he swung aloft again into God's air. All this I tell you was a dream, of course, but in it I wept and sobbed bitterly, and the goodly-haired Achaean women thronged about, while I bewailed my geese which the eagle had killed. But suddenly he swooped back to perch on a projecting black beam of the house and bring forth a human voice that dried my tears. "Daughter of Icarus, be comforted," it said. "This is no dream, but a picture of stark reality, wholly to be fulfilled. These geese are your suitors, and I, lately the eagle, am your husband come again, to launch foul death upon them all." With this in my ears, I awoke from my sleep to be aware of the geese waddling through the place or guzzling their food from the trough, just as ever. Odysseus replied to her, "Lady, this dream cannot be twisted to read otherwise than as Odysseus himself promised its fulfillment. Destruction is foredoomed for each and every suitor. None will escape the fatal issue." But wise Penelope responded, Stranger, dreams are tricksy things and hard to unravel. By no means all in them comes true for us. Twin are the gates to the impalpable land of dreams, these made from horn and those of ivory. Dreams that pass by the pale carven ivory are irony, cheats with a burden of vain hope. But every dream which comes to man through the gate of horn forecasts the future of death. I fear my odd dream was not such a one, welcomed though the event would be to me and my son. Let me tell you something to bear in mind. Presently will dawn the ill-famed day which severs me from the house of Odysseus. To introduce it, I am staging a contest with those axes my lord, when at home, used to set up, all 12 together, like an alley of oaken build blocks, before standing well back to send an arrow through the lot. Now will I put the same feat to my suitors, and the one who easiest strings the bow with his bare hands and shoots through the 12 axes. After him will I go, forsaking this house of my marriage, this very noble, well-appointed house, that surely I shall remember after in my dreams. Odysseus uttered his opinion again. August wife of Odysseus, do not hesitate to arrange this trial in the hall. For Odysseus of the many sleights will be there before these men, for all their pawing of the shapely bow shall have strung it and shot the arrow through the galley of iron. Said Penelope, if only you would consent, stranger, to sit by me all night, entertaining me, sleep would not again drown my eyes. Yet mortals cannot forever dispense with sleep, the deathless ones having appointed its due time to each thing for man upon this fertile earth. So I will away to my room, and lie on its couch, the place of my groaning, which has been wet with my tears all the while since Odysseus went to destroy that place that I never name. There shall I be lying while you rest here in the hall. Either spread something on the floor, or have them arrange you a bed. She ceased and went off to her shining upper room, not alone, for the maids trooped after her. So she lamented Odysseus, her dear husband, till Athene's kindly sleep closed her eyelids. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Book 20. Eventually, noble Odysseus made his bed in the entrance hall by stretching an untanned ox hide on the floor and piling upon it many fleeces of the sheep sacrificed to Achaean appetite. Eurynome drew a mantle over him after he had lain down. Yet sleep would not come, because his heart was too active in planning evil against the suitors, for whom, besides, after a while, those women that nightly played the strumpet poured out with laughter and loud jest from the servants' quarter. His gorge rose then, impulse and reason warred within him, now wanting to charge forth and give each whore her death, now to yield them a latest and last chambering. Over this his secret self snarled like a bitch standing guard over her helpless litter, while she stiffens with a growl to fly at any approaching stranger. So the anger rumbled within Odysseus at their lechery, but he smote his breast in self-rebuke, saying, Be patient, heart. You stood a grimmer trial, that day the bestial Cyclops devoured my splendid fellows. Steadfastly you bore it, till your cunning had frayed you a path from that cave you thought your death trap. He so conjured himself and rated his passions that his soul's patience survived to the end. But the strain tossed his body about, like the basting paunch stuffed with blood and fat that a man who wants it immediately cooked will turn over and over before a blazing fire. In such fashion did Odysseus roll to this side and to that in the throes of wondering how his single self could get the many shameless suitors into his grasp. Upon his perplexity, Athene, in her woman's shape, came down from heaven to stand above his head and say, Why still awake and watchful, O sorriest man of men? Now you lie at last in your own house. Where are your wife and also your son? Such a lad as everyone would wish his son to be. And to her Odysseus replied, Alas, goddess, your rebuke is justified, but my heart's debate was how one man might lay hands upon these wasters who keep the house in droves. And out of that rises the second and stiffer problem. Supposing the grace of Zeus, with yours, lets me slay them, where afterwards may I find sanctuary? Inspire me, pray. Exigent wretch, said the goddess. Others trust friends so much feebler than me, creatures all too human and not various, whereas I am very God and your buckler to the end of toil. Let me state you a naked truth. Though 50 troops of humans hemmed us round, all mad to kill outright, yet should you win through to lift their flocks and herds. So let yourself sleep. Watching all night is very wearying, and presently you will be quitted of evil. She spoke, shed a slumbering upon his eyelids, and left for Olympus. Odysseus sank into the arms of sleep, a Narvalaying sleep, which ravelled out the tangles of his mind. But his loyal wife awoke and sat up in her soft couch to weep, before praying directly to Artemis. Artemis, goddess, daughter of Zeus, only strike me through now with your dart and take my life utterly away, or let a whirlwind hurtle me down the darkling ways and fling me where the undertow of ocean joins the main. The whirlwinds thus paid the daughter of Pandarus, who had been orphaned in their home by the gods killing their parents. Aphrodite nourished them with goat milk cheese and sweet honey and wholesome wine. Hera gave them beauty and insight above all women, and Artemis made them buxom, while Athene dowered them with every grace and art. Yet as Aphrodite was journeying to high Olympus to beg their crowning glory of fortunate marriages, and beg it of Zeus the thunder-lover, who knows what is or is not destined for mankind, even then the harpies of the storm snatched the girls away and cast them to serve the terrible Furies. Oh, that the dwellers on Olympus would so blot me from human sight, or well-trussed Artemis thrust me through, that as I went to my grave under the hateful earth, I might yet carry with me the image of Odysseus, unsmirched by dalliance with some baser man. I call that pain endurable, if it makes one mourn day long from the heart's great ache, but permits sleep of nights, the sleep which assoils all good and ill concern, once it has lidded the eyes. But for me, even the dreams vouchsafed by the powers are an affliction. Tonight, for example, there lay by me the image of my man as when he left for the war, and my heart leapt up, thinking it no dream, but truth at last. So ran her complaint till dawn came, golden-throned, and then her sobbing pierced to the ears of Odysseus, and mingled with his waking thoughts. It's raining. And mingled with his waking thoughts, to make him fancy she had discovered him, and was there by his side. He rose to fold the cloak and the sheepskins on which she had slept, and then laid them on the hall throne. But the ox-hide he took out of doors and spread for his praying to Zeus with uplifted hands. O Father Zeus, if heaven's goodwill has led me safely home across the waters and the wilderness, despite terrible danger, then let the welkin yield some sign thereof from you, and waking humanity confirm it with an important word. This prayer Zeus the contriver heard. He pealed from out the mists veiling the radiant peak of Olympus, and made Odysseus glad, while the momentous word was uttered by a woman slaving at her quern nearby. What's a quern? In the mill-room attached to the palace of the people's shepherd. There all day 12 women strove their hardest, grinding barley meal and flour, the marrow of man's strength. They were sleeping now with their stint of grain well ground, all save the feeblest one, who yet labored, but at the thunder she too let her mill run down, to sigh out the word for which her king was waiting. O Father Zeus, ruler of gods and men, this loud peal from a star-spangled sky without one wisp of cloud, do you thereby show some sign for man? Granted import, I pray, even for wretched me. Let today's be the final and ultimate easy feast of the suitors in Odysseus' halls. To mill groats for them must my limbs be wrung with this excruciating toil. Make it their last supper, Lord. She breathed this out, and great Odysseus rejoiced for its aptness and for the thunder of Zeus. He told himself he had won his revenge upon the wrongdoers. Meantime, the other maids of the great palace were stirring. They rebuilt the undying fire upon the hearth. Telemachus rose from his couch, a godlike figure of a man as he put on his clothes, before slinging his sharp swords about his shoulders and binding the handsome sandals to his lissom feet. He plucked up his massive bronze-tipped spear and stood by the outer door to ask Euryclea, "Dear nurse, about our guest. Was he honorably entreated as regards bed and food, or left anyhow to fend for himself, as is so much my mother's way, woman of the world though she be? She falls over herself to please some worthless fellow, and leaves a worthy man in utter neglect." Faithful Euryclea answered back, "Child, you find fault where no fault is found. The man sat and drank all the wine he wished, but refused food on the plea of no appetite, though she pressed him. She would have had the maids make down a bed against his wanting to sleep, but he seemed so beaten and hopeless that he would not lie between blankets on a couch. Instead, he had an undressed ox-hide and fleeces in the entrance hall. We put a cloak over him, too. After hearing her, Telemachus, carrying his spear, left the house with 2 swift dogs at heel, making for the assembly ground to meet the warrior Achaeans. While the dame began to hustle her maids, calling out, "Rally round now and fall to work, some of you on the floor, sweeping till your breath is spent. But first put water down, and then smooth the throne's purple housings, while you others take sponges and clean down all the tables, swilling out the mixing bowls and the handsome double-handed cups. All the rest fetch water from the spring, briskly there and briskly back. Very soon this morning will the house see its suitors again, today being the public festival." She rained orders upon them, and freely they obeyed. Full 20 set off for the fountain where the dark water flowed, while the others skillfully did out the hall. Then the freedmen began to appear. Some of these adeptly split kindling wood till the women should return from the spring. But when they did come, Eumaeus the swineherd was of the party, with 3 of his fattest hogs. He left these rooting in the precincts to address Odysseus in all courtesy. "Stranger, have the Achaeans come to look upon you with more favor, or are they yet despiteful as they were?" And Odysseus rejoined, "O Eumaeus, may the gods punish their outrages and the way these nefarious ruffians misuse another's house." So far they had got when Melanthius, the goatman, appeared with two herders, and the finest of their goats for the suitors' table. He tied his beasts under the echoing porchway and remarked to Odysseus with a sneer, "You still pester the household, stranger, by your begging and refusal to leave? I think our affair will not be closed with you till you get a taste of fist. Importunity like yours is not decent. This is not the solitary Achaean banquet." Roundly he abused him, but crafty Odysseus made no reply, only hanging his head in silence. Yet within him his enmity increased. A third party arrived, Philodius, a man of mark, who had with him a heifer for these suitors and more prime goats. Just like my chin. How about that? That's a little bit better. He had been brought across by the boatman of the public ferry. After tethering his charges securely in the porch, he came over to Eumaeus, saying, "Swineherd, who is this fresh stranger in our house? What race does he claim? Where are his people in their lands? Shabby he may be, but his build is royal. A man meshed in the web of the god's wrath and made homeless soon shows the strain, even if he had been a king." He turned to Odysseus and held out a right hand, saying cordially, "Greeting, sir, stranger. May the future bring you happiness, for patently you are now in the toils of misfortune." It's been a long week. "Father Zeus, you are the deadliest of all gods, and that you make no allowance for the men you have created, but tangle them in such sad and sorry pains. I sweat only to think of it, and my eyes grow moist, remembering Odysseus, who, if yet alive, and in the sunshine, may be ragged and adrift like this. But if he is dead and gone down to Hades' mansions, then hear me bemoan the excellent Odysseus, who, while I was yet a boy, promoted me over his herds in Cephallenia? Yes, and these have so increased as to be beyond number, like ears of standing corn for multitude. Never did any man's broad-fronted cattle breed better. But these outsiders, disregarding the son of the house and slighting the gods, make me bring in my beasts ever and again for their banqueting." Okay, we got there. "Their latest freak is to share out the whole fortune of our missing king. I keep on turning the affair over in my mind, well aware how wrong it would be to go off, beeves and all, to a stranger's service while their heir lives, but certain that it is worse still to sit down here under such iniquities and herd my cattle for the benefit of men who have no claim to them. My position is unbearable. Long since I should have run off and engaged myself with some other mighty king, only that I keep thinking of this unhappy man, and how he might suddenly turn up from nowhere and chase the suitors helter-skelter through his house." Said Odysseus in crafty reply, "Cowherd, you display a goodly discretion. My judgment assures me upon the rightness of your instincts. So I shall tell you a thing on my solemn and lawful oath. O Zeus, greatest of the gods, be my witness, and the hospitable table and hearth of great Odysseus by which I stand. You shall be yet in this place when Odysseus comes home. Your eyes shall see the fate you invoke meted these officious suitors." The cowman replied, "May the son of Kronos fulfill your sword, stranger, to let me see how my hands should gratify my strength." Eumaeus echoed his prayer to all the gods that Odysseus might return, while the suitors in their place were again conspiring a death by violence for Telemachus. But an eagle stooped from the heights of the sky and flew past on their left, bearing off a pitiful dove. Whereupon Amphinomus rose and said, "Friends, our plot to assassinate Telemachus is misjudged. Let us feast instead." They accepted his verdict and marched to the place of Odysseus, where they laid their cloaks aside upon seats before turning to slaughter the sheep, the goats, the swine, and the heifer from the stock. They roasted the inwards and passed them round, then mixed wine in the bowls. The swineherd gave out the cups. Stately Philodius helped them to bread from the fair baskets, and Melanthius poured wine. All set to and feasted. With suitable intent, Telemachus had brought Odysseus within the hall, arranging him a small table and a plain settee by the stone entry. He helped him to the inward meats and poured him wine in a golden cup, pronouncing, "Rest you there and drink your wine among the men. Should abuse or assault follow from the suitors, I shall be your defense. This place is not a public house, but the palace of Odysseus, which he won for me. So you, suitors, must govern your hearts and hands to prevent breach of the peace." Such bold speech from Telemachus made them bite their lips in amazement, but Antinous rallied them. "What Telemachus says is severe, and he threatens us starkly, Achaeans. Yet take it quietly. Zeus was not willing, or already we should have cut off his peevish railing in the hall." However, Telemachus paid no heed to this, for already the heralds were going in procession through the town with the long array of beasts to be slain in the gods' honor, and the long-haired Achaeans were gathering within the shady grove of Apollo, lord of the bow. There they roasted the flesh and drew it off the spits for division. Nobly they feasted, the servers helping Odysseus to his portion, just like their own or another's, for that was the ruling of Telemachus, his dear son. However, Athene did not mean to let the suitors rest from provoking Odysseus, for she wanted their contempt to make his heart ache. Among the suitors was one especial ruffian, Stepius of Same, whose enormous wealth had emboldened him to woo the wife of absent Odysseus, and now he bade forth in their midst. "Hear me, suitor lords, hear what I suggest. The stranger has had his share like the others, as is fitting. To stint a guest of Telemachus, whatever his sort, would be unjust and indecorous. But it is quite a while since he had it, so now I am adding my guessing gift, which will let him spare his old foot-washing hag a trifle, or tip some other palace servant." Therewith he snatched a cow's foot from the dish before him and hurled it with a strong hand, but Odysseus inclined his head lightly to one side and avoided it with a wry smile. It crashed harmlessly against a solid wall. Telemachus was up to rate Stepius soundly. Telemachus was up to rate Ctesippus soundly. He cried, "Very profitable for your peace of mind, Stepius, that you missed the stranger." Ctesippus. "Very profitable for your peace of mind, Ctesippus, that you missed the stranger. Had he not dodged your shot, I should have thrust you through the midriff with my way spear and given your father the pains of your funeral, not your marriage here. Let me finally warn you all against displaying violence in my house. I used to be a child, but now have come to the knowledge of good and evil. Necessity may lead us to stand impotently by while our sheep are butchered and our wine and food wasted, for one man can scarcely make head against many. Only make sure your enmity stops short of actual crime. Otherwise, if you must persist in your murderous intent against me, hear my deliberate convocation, that death is better than longer looking upon your villainies, this outraging my guests and manhandling my servant women all through the stately palace to their shame." His outburst stilled them for a while. At last Agelaus, son of Damastor, said, "My friends, when there has been plain speaking, it is not a man's part to lose temper or complain. Let be the stranger and the servants of Odysseus' household. I would offer Telemachus a soft answer, meant for his mother too, hoping it may move them. So long as your hearts keep a vestige of hope for the return of Odysseus, your delaying and excusing the suitors vexed nobody. Clearly it was expedient, while a chance remained of his survival and returned. But now it is plain that he is gone. So sit down beside your mother and put it to her that she must wed the best man and highest bidder." Then she will take over that other's house and let you comfortably assume your whole inheritance and free enjoyment of your food and drink." Telemachus protested, "Indeed, Agelaus, I swear to you by Zeus and by all the pains my father suffered in dying or straying far from Ithaca, that the obstacle to my mother's marrying lies not in me. I implore her to choose whom she prefers and take him. I go so far as to offer countless presents if but she will. Only I shrink from her ordering. Only I shrink from her ordering her unwillingly from the house. God forbid it should come to that." Yeah. This shit is hard to read. I'm doing my best. Upon these words of Telemachus, Pallas Athene fired the suitors to a laughter that ran on and on till it crazed them out of their wits. Now they were laughing with mouths that were not their own, while blood oozed from the flesh they ate. Their eyes filled with tears, and their souls were racked in agony. Godlike Theoclymenus wailed out, "O unhappy men, what is this horror come upon you? A night shrouds your heads, your faces, it creeps down to your knees. Weeping and wailing flash back and forth. Cheeks stream with tears, and a dew of blood beads over the smooth wall panels. Ghostly forms throng the entrance and pack the hall itself, shuffling in long file through the murks towards hell. The sun is lost out of heaven, and a dire gloom prevails." Laughter rang loud from the company as he unburdened himself, and Eurymachus, son of Polybus, rose to say, "Our new-come visitor from alien parts has lost his senses. Quick, young men, escort him out and to the marketplace. He fancies it is black night there." Theoclymenus retorted, "Eurymachus, I want none of your guiding. Eyes I have and ears, my 2 feet, and a spirit not of the meanest. In their power will I pass the threshold, for I feel that evil not to be shunned or avoided, looms over each single one of you suitors, whose brutal and perverse imaginings pollute the house of Odysseus." He quitted the hall to receive honest welcome from Piraeus in his house, while the suitors, after an interchange of stares, began to tease Telemachus by poking fun at his guests, repeating despitefully, "Indeed, Telemachus, there can be no unluckier host. First you take in this lousy unknown tramp without profession and without prowess, but instably bellied for eating and drinking, a perfect cumberer of the earth, and then your second guest stands up to play the prophet. Have my advice and make something by them. Let us pack them for sale aboard some many-oared galley bound for Sicily. You would get a good price that way." Thus the suitors, but he ignored them, in the intensity of his silent gaze upon his father, awaiting the moment to lift his hand against his tormentors. Decorous Penelope had put her state chair just over against them and heard all that had passed. Not that their laughter had hindered the slaughter of many victims to furnish their juicy, abundant meal. Though what ghastlier banquet could be dreamed of than this which the goddess and the valiant man, trapping them after their own villainous example, were now about to provide? Okay, book 21. We're just going to take a second here. How is everyone? Happy Saturday. I hope everyone's having a great day. I, for one, am sleepy for some reason, though I slept until like 9:30 this morning. And I finally got like a clear top coat for my nails, so they're not chipping as much, which is really nice. Super exciting. Okay, let's get into book 21. For Athene chose this moment to introduce the means of bloody death by prompting wise Penelope to ordain bow and pallid iron as gauges of prowess for her suitors in Odysseus's halls. With her throng of escorting women, the queen stepped from her room by the tall stairway, firmly carrying the curved key, a noble key, bronze-forged, with ivory shank, as far as the store chamber in the depths of the house, where the treasures of her king were laid up, his bronze, his gold, his patently wrought iron. Among them were the recurved bow with its arrow case that yet held many arrows, each a groan maker. These had been given Odysseus years ago by a fellow guest in Lacedaemon at the hospitable house of Ortilochus in Messene, where a whim of fate threw him into the company of godlike Iphitus, son of Eurytus. Odysseus had come hither on a suit affecting the whole community. for the men of Messene had lifted in their ships 300 Ithacan sheep with the thralls minding them, and his father and the other elders had commissioned Odysseus, still a lad in years, to make this long journey on their behalf. What's going on here? Hi, how are you? I hope you're having a good day and a good stream. I'm good. I'm tired. The stream is going well. I am mispronouncing words as usual, but here we are. How are you? As for Iphitus, he was in search of strayed horses, a dozen mares with sturdy mulefuls at milk. Later, these same beasts were to be the death of him by bringing upon him that supreme man of action, Heracles, Zeus's bold son, who flouted the gods and stained his hospitable board by the dastardly killing of Iphitus while a guest under his roof. And after the crime, Heracles kept the strong hooved horses in his palace for himself. I'm glad you're here. Hi. While thus searching, Iphitus met Odysseus and presented him with the bow which great Eurytus had carried before his time, and dying, left to the son of his lofty house. The return gifts of Odysseus were a keen sword and a formidable spear, earnests of a cherished acquaintanceship that, however, failed to ripen into mutual entertainment, because the son of Zeus too soon murdered godlike Iphitus, the giver of the bow, which great Odysseus preserved in his house as an abiding memorial of this beloved fellow guest, and never took with him on foray in his dun vessels. He could carry it only when he went about his own lands. The fairest of the women held on her way to the treasury till she stood on its oak threshold, which had been dressed so skillfully smooth by the old-time workman. Squared it, he had, by rule, and trued the jambs upon it, and set up his gleaming doors. And there she swiftly unbound the thong from the hook of the latch, and thrust the key home with such decision that the door fastening snapped open. The roar with which the splendid door sprang wide at the stroke of her key resounded like the bellow of a bull afield at grass, so abruptly they opened for her. She climbed to the high stand supporting the chests in which the clothing was laid away in spices. Spices. She reached up to its peg and unhooked the bow, all proper in its shining case, and sat there herself with it across her knees, and taking out her lord's bow, cried bitterly a while. Then after her tearful sorrow had exhausted itself, she proceeded again to the hall of the proud suitors, holding the recurved bow in one hand, and also bearing its quiver load of woeful arrows. Her women brought along in its chest the iron and bronze gear used by the king when he would play. Once more in the suitor's presence, the queen stood by the roof pillar with her gauzy veil before her face and 2 trusty women flanking her. She called to her suitors and said, "Hear me, my lords and courtiers that have haunted and beset this house and eaten and drunk here all the long time the master has been away, with only excuse and burden of talk your lustful desire to wed me and possess me for wife. Now, my suitors, see your test plain. Here I set the bow of godlike Odysseus. Whoso easiest strings the bow with bare hands and shoots an arrow through the 12 axes, after him will I follow, forsaking this house, my husband's home, a house so goodly and stocked with all life's comforts that remembrance thereof will come back to me, I think, hereafter in my dreams." Upon that she bade Eumaeus, the master swineherd, arrange the bow and the great iron axes for the suitors. But Eumaeus burst into tears as he received them for handing over, and the cowherd in his place wept too at the sight of the royal bow. They brought upon themselves the rebuke of Antinous, who called out, "You silly yokels with day-cribbed imaginations, twin fools, how dare you, by floods of tears, further distress that womanly heart which already lies prostrate in agony at losing a beloved husband." Period. "Sit you down and eat in silence, or take your lamenting out of doors, being careful, however, to leave us that bow, the suitor's dire and infallible test. Not easily, I think, will that smooth bow be restrung. In all this crowd there is never a match for Odysseus, I remember. How that peep at him sticks with me, child though I was." This was what he said aloud, but in his heart of hearts he fancied his own chance of notching the string and shooting through the irons. Yet his actual destiny was to get the first taste of arrow from great Odysseus, whom now he was himself contemning and egging on his fellows to contemn, where he sat in his own hall. Princely Telemachus cut across them with the cry, "Alas, and woe is me! Zeus drives me crazy. My beloved mother, in her wisdom, proclaims that she will forsake this house and cleave to a stranger. And I laugh out and go gay in my heart's folly. Step up, you suitors, with this prize in view. The lady has no peer in the Achaean country, not in Pylos, the holy, nor in Argos, nor Mycenae, nowhere in our Ithaca or on the dark mainland. You know it all. What have I to do praising my mother? Up with you, let us see what we shall see. Away with excuses for hanging back or putting off the bow bending. Stay, why should I not try it myself? If I can string it and shoot through the iron, I shall not so regret my mother's leaving home in some stranger's train, for I shall at least be living here and man enough to bear my father's arms." With this, he slipped the keen sword and blood-red cloak from his shoulders to heave himself upright. He began to set up the axes, hollowing one long trench for them all, getting them exactly in line, and firming the earth about them with his foot. Every onlooker was amazed at how regularly he set them, despite his never having seen it done before. Then he took his stand by the main threshold and essayed the bow. 3 times it quivered under his frantic efforts to string it, and 3 times he had to rest his muscles, though still the hope buoyed him of notching the cord and sending a shaft between the irons. Perhaps he might have summoned all his forces and succeeded at the 4th try, only Odysseus frowned him off it and checked his zeal. Whereupon Telemachus sighed that all could hear. "Alas, must I go on being a feeble failure, or am I still too young to trust to my own hands for safety against attack? However, to it you with the stouter thews. Attempt the bow, and let us get this contest over." With this he laid aside the bow, propping it between the floor and the close-jointed door frame, while the keen shaft he leaned against the showy crook of the latch. As he resumed his throne, Antinous, the son of Eupathes, called out, "Up with you in turn from left to right, fellows, the way our wine goes round." His notion pleased them, and so Leodes, the son of Oenopus, was the first to rise. As their augur, he had the end seat beside the splendid mixing bowl, but their violence so repelled him that he kept by himself in solitary loathing of the suitors. Yet now he led off by picking up the bow with its sharp arrow over there by the threshold, where he felt the bow's stiffness could not string it. Before ever it bent, his hands gave way, his soft, untried hands. So he cried to the suitors, "I cannot bend it, friends. Let some other try. Indeed, this bow will break many princes, body and soul. Yet how much better it is that we die than live in the failure of that ideal which holds us yearning here day after day. Doubtless someone aspires with his whole heart's strength to marry Penelope, the bedmate of Odysseus. Let such a one try this bow and learn its lesson, and then divert his gifts to winning another of the well-robed Achaean women, while this one weds her fated best bidder. He, also, put down the bow to lean against the smooth doors, with the arrow against the door handle, before going straight back to sit on the seat he had left, but Antinous named him in sharpest rebuke, and said, "Leodes, it shocks me to hear this dismal judgment escape your lips. Merely because you fail to bend it, must this bow cost our bravest ones their lives or souls? In very truth, your lady mother, when she conceived you, was not making a master bowman. Yet there are some amongst the distinguished suitors who will soon manage the stringing." He turned to Melanthius, the herder of goats, by saying, "Bestir yourself, Melanthius, and quicken the hall fire. Put before it a broad trestle with sheepskin atop, and fetch that great ball of tallow from within. Then, after it has been warmed through and well greased, we young men can prove this bow to conclude our test." At his bidding, Melanthius quickened the never-dying fire and brought near it the trestle with its sheepskin and the big ball of tallow from inside the house. The young men warmed the bow and did their best to string it, but failed. They showed themselves not nearly strong enough, but Antinous and Eurymachus kept themselves out of it, and they were the leading suitors, their best in general merit. While this was happening, the neathered and swineherd of royal Odysseus had quitted the palace altogether. Odysseus himself followed them out through the courtyard and its gates, where he cleared his throat and said to them ever so smoothly, "O herder of cattle and you swineherd, am I to tell you something or keep it to myself? My impulse is to say it out. If Odysseus were to appear somehow, suddenly, shall we say a god bringing him, how far would you help? Would you be for the suitors or for Odysseus? Show me the working of your hearts and minds." The keeper of his cattle then burst out, "O Father Zeus, only let that hope come true and return him, led by the Spirit. So shall you witness how my hands would serve my might." And Eumaeus echoed him in praying to all the gods for the homecoming of resourceful Odysseus. Thus assured of their hearts, he quickly replied, "But I am back again, my own true self, here at home after 20 years of hardship. To realize that of all my servants, only you two long for my coming. From the rest, I have not heard one prayer breathed for my return." I was wondering when he was gonna show himself. "So let me lay down to you what will follow upon God's giving me the victory over the haughty suitors. I shall find you a wife each, and an endowment of cattle and houses built next to mine, and you shall rank with me hereafter as the fellows and blood brothers of Telemachus. Now I will show you a sure and certain sign, to make you credit me from the bottom of your hearts. See my scar, given me by the boar's white tusk so long ago, as I went upon Parnassus with the son of Autolycus." As he spoke, he opened his rags to betray his great scar, and when the pair of them had studied it and knew it for sure, they wept and flung their arms about Odysseus, with most loving kisses for his head and shoulders. Odysseus had answering kisses for their heads and hands, so that truly the sun might have gone down upon their emotion, only for Odysseus pulling himself together to say, "Now stop this sorrow and weeping, lest someone come from the house, espy us, and report it within. Instead, go you back, not together, but one by one, me first and you afterward, with the procedure fixed between us. Understand that those suitor lords will one and all refuse me alone of the bow and quiver. So you, Eumaeus, as you carry it up and down the hall, must put it into my hands, and then go tell the women to close the stout doors of their quarters, and should they hear men's voices from our side groaning or in dispute, let there be no running out of doors, but a steady holding to their work within. While you, noble Philodius, I tell off to shut and bar the gates of the court, lashing them together as quickly as you can." Upon which he turned back to the stately house to resume the seat he had left. Then the two serfs came in. Eurymachus's hand still held the bow and turned it every way before the blazing fire to warm it, but nevertheless he utterly failed at the stringing. Deeply he groaned in his pride of heart, and woefully he exclaimed, "Alas, I sorrow for my own sake and for the general. It is bitter to forfeit this marriage, yet that is not the worst. There are plenty more Achaean women here in sea-girt Ithaca, and others in other cities. What I chiefly regret is our appearing to fall so short of godlike Odysseus in strength as not to be able even to bend his bow. The tale would disgrace us generations hence." Antinous, the son of Eupithes, protested, "Not so, Eurymachus, and you know why. Today is sacred to the archer god and his public feast. On it, who will be bending bows? Put it down and leave it, and the axes too. We can let them stand. I fancy no one will venture into the great hall of Odysseus, son of Laertes, to lift them. Come on, have the server fill once more our cups, that we may offer libation before the bow as it lies there in a hoop. Tomorrow morning we will have Melanthius, the goat-keeper, fetch in the best goats of his whole flock, for us to offer thigh pieces to the mighty archer Apollo before our trial of the bow and the ending of this contest." Thus Antinous and his advice pleased. The heralds poured water out on their hands, and their squires brimmed the bowls with wine all round. Everyone offered, and afterwards drank his full. But then craftily and suddenly Odysseus spoke out, saying, "Hear me, suitors of the famous queen, while I retail my promotings of the heart, making my main appeal to Eurymachus and to godlike Antinous for his fitting counsel just now to leave the bow to the god's reference. In the morning the god will give mastery to whom he wills. Yet for the moment pass me this polished bow, that I may test my hands and strength while you watch, to see whether there yet lies in me the virtue that once inhabited my supple limbs, or the privations of a wandering life have wasted it right away." His words enraged them all, and instantly, for fear lest he string the polished bow. Loudly Antinous rebuked him. "Foreign wretch, are you utterly devoid of sense? Is this dining in our high company not enough for you? We let you eat your full share unmolested, and hear our debate and conversation, which no other beggared stranger overhears. It is wine that plays the mischief with you, the sweet wine which ruins all who drink with deep and greedy gullet. It was the downfall of Eurytion, the famous centaur, in the house of brave Pirithous during his visit to Lapithae. Tell you something, I for sure thought that in the last 4 chapters of the book there wouldn't be any new names for me to learn and mispronounce, but obviously I was misunderstood. The wine took away his senses and maddened him so that he did terrible things in Pirithous' house. The heroes went wild with rage and flung him out of doors after slicing his ears and nose with their cruel weapons, and away with shattered wits he went, hag-ridden by the burden of his folly. So began the feud between the centaurs and mankind, the original injury being self-inflicted by immoderacy in wine. Wherefore let me warn you against the painful consequences of your stringing that bow. We will find no grace from anyone in this country. You will find no grace from anyone in this country, but we shall ship you promptly in a dark hall to King Echetus, that mutilator of the human race. And once with him, you are doomed beyond hope. So drink up in all quietness and avoid challenging the younger generation. To chorus, Penelope complained to him, Antinos, it is neither fair nor seemly to browbeat in this house any visiting guest of Telemachus, whatever his quality. Do you really envisage the stranger's taking me home and lying with me, if by prowess and sleight of hand he strings the great bow of Odysseus? Why, he, in his own heart of hearts, has no hope of that. Let not a thought so ugly vex the soul of any one of you feasters. It would never, never do. Eurymachus, the son of Polybus, replied to her, Wise Penelope, we do not contemplate his carrying you off. That is unthinkable. Only we shrink from what some low-down Achaean, man or woman, might later say, such as, Poor creatures, these quarters of the hero's widow, with their efforts and failures to string his polished bow, until a beggarman came wandering by and strung it easily and shot through the iron. They will gossip so to our shame. Penelope retorted, Eurymachus, the men who devour and dishonor a nobleman's house will not anyhow be accorded public respect. So why thus nice upon a detail? Our guest, this tall, personable figure, claims that his father was a man of breeding. Up with you, therefore, and hand him the polished bow to let us see. I tell you, I will make a firm offer. If he, by the ordering of Apollo, bends it, I shall clothe him fairly in tunic and cloak, and give him a sharp spear and double-edged sword for defense against dogs and men, and also shoes for his feet and passage whithersoever his spirit binds. Telemachus thus answered her, My mother, in the disposal of the bow there lies not an Achaean with more rights than I, to grant it or refuse at my pleasure. If it so pleases me, no chief from the scraggy Ithaca, or from any other island right down to Elis of the stud farms, shall prevent my giving these arms outright to the stranger for his taking away. Off with you then, to your quarters and your duties, the weaving and the spinning and the ordering of your maid's work. The bow is man's business, and especially my business, as I am master here. She turned bewildered into the house with this pregnant phrase of her son's laid upon her heart, and when upstairs again with her serving women, she bewailed Odysseus, her sweet husband, till Athene shed a balm of sleep upon her eyes. I wish it were that easy. Athene, if you could shed a balm of sleep upon my eyes, that'd be great. The worthy swineherd took up the bow, and then the whole crowd of suitors in the hall roared against him, stuttering in their young pride, Miserable half-wit of a pig-keeper, where would you carry that recurved bow? Let but Apollo and the other immortal gods hear our petition, and soon shall those swift hounds you breed eat you alive amongst your swine, far from man's help. It's fucked up. Their threats so frightened him that he dropped his burden where he stood, all mazed with their many-voiced clamoring in the hall. But now Telemachus menaced him loudly from the opposite part, shouting, Carry on with the bow, ancient. If you obey all these, you will be instantly sorry when I take advantage of my youth and greater strength to chase you into the open country with volleys of flung stones. There is someone else I would as soon send sorely packing from the house for their evil designs, had I only a like margin of power over the suitors. His outburst made them laugh so merrily together that their anger against Telemachus passed, and the swineherd went along through the hall with the bow till he reached Odysseus and put it into his hands. Then he called Euryclea, the nurse, aside and charged her. Telemachus orders you, wise Euryclea, to shut tight the stout doors of your quarter. And if any one of the women inside should hear the sound of groaning men from our part of the house, see that she comes not out, but keeps quietly at work." These words made her speech flutter and fail. She fastened the doors of the stately place, while Philodius slipped stealthily outdoors to secure the gates of the courtyard. In its loggia there chanced to be lying the grass hawser of a merchantman. This he used to make all fast before he went in again to sit as he had sat on his settee, watching Odysseus, who still felt the bow, turning it round and testing it throughout, to make sure that worms had not riddled the tips during its lord's absence. Men turned to their neighbors and muttered, "The fellow is a bow fancier or expert. What? Perhaps he has something of the kind laid by at home, or is the ill-conditioned beggar planning to make one by the way he twists it over and over in his hands?" To which the next young scoffer might reply, "May his luck in that end like his bowstring effort." Thus the suitors, but Odysseus, the master of craft, had by now handled and surveyed the great bow up and down. Hi. Calmly, he stretched it out with the effortless ease of a skilled musician who makes fast both ends of a piece of twined catgut and strains it to a new peg in his lyre. Changing the bow to his right hand, he proved the string, which sang to his pluck, sharp like a sallow's cry. Distress overwhelmed the suitors, and they changed color. Zeus declared himself in a loud thunder peal, and long-suffering royal Odysseus rejoiced that the son of devious-counseled Cronos should make him a sign. He snatched up the keen arrow which lay naked there upon his table, all the others which the Achaeans were so soon to feel being yet stored in their quiver, and set it firmly upon the grip of the bow. He notched it to the string and drew, and from his place upon the settee, just as he sat, sent the arrow with so straight an aim that he did not foul one single axe. The bronze-headed shaft threaded them clean, from the leading helve onward, till it issued through the portal of the last ones. Then he cried to Telemachus, "Telemachus, the guest sitting in your hall does you no disgrace. My aim went true, and my drawing the bow was no long struggle. See, my strength stands unimpaired to disprove the suitor's slandering. In this very hour, while daylight lasts, is the Achaean supper to be contrived, and after it we must make them a different play, with the dancing and music that garnish any feast." He frowned to him in warning, and Telemachus, his loved son, belted the sharp sword to him, and tightened grip upon his spear before he rose, gleaming crested, to stand by Odysseus beside the throne. Okay, well, that is where we're going to end today. We will finish the book tomorrow. I do have a YouTube channel. It's the same name as this channel, K.A. Reads Classics. This part will get uploaded on there, as is the rest of the book, and a bunch of other books. So that's all. I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks for reading with me. Bye.